Welcome everyone to today's webcast. We're going to be covering an introduction to the CIM Manager Suite. This is one of the Civil 3D suites from CTC Software. My name is Brian Lewandowski. I'm the Civil Product Manager here at CTC, and I will be giving the presentation today. This will be recorded. You can always get this on our YouTube page, so put your pencils down, just have a listen. And questions, feel free to submit those. We'll address those after the presentation, or if it's a lot of detail, I'll reach out to you afterwards. So, but please shoot questions to me. Let me know what you're thinking. So with that, we will get started. So the CIM Manager Suite, those of you who aren't familiar with it, it is a set of CAD manager tools for both Civil 3D and AutoCAD. Some of the tools function with just base AutoCAD type content. Some of it is Civil 3D specific. But these are not end user production tools, though there may be some overlap, but they're primarily about managing templates and content that are provided by yourself or someone else for all your users. And so we're doing things like automating template creation and editing. One of the ways we're doing this is by syncing these different standards or these table interfaces through Excel. And the types of things I'm talking about are layers, line type, styles, description keys, figure prefix databases, a lot of the different areas of across Civil 3D that there really isn't an easy way to do it natively, or maybe there is a tool there, but it's just rather slow and clumsy. And so our aim with this is to provide you tools to create better content, create it faster so that your users can have, so they can be more productive. So I'm just going to go through a quick overview of the tools that are in the suite, and then we're going to jump into the software and show you how they function. What I'm showing you today is actually a release that's due in about a month or so. So there's some new features. I know some of you guys already have the CIM Manager Suite, so I'll be sure to try to point out some of those new features as we stumble across them. So first one, Linetype Manager. This is a tool that gives you a graphical or a visual interface to work with, to edit, to create line types. Little screenshot here, you can see you actually get a visual preview while you're working on the line type itself. Template Tracker, this is a tool that allows you to track the use of layers and annotation styles like text styles or dim styles across your drawings and templates. Many times you're searching all over the place to understand where this stuff is being used. Template Tracker will tell you immediately and then give you ways to perhaps change those layer references or text style references across all kinds of places at once in your templates or drawings. Next one is Layer Boss. This works with Layer Manager and the object layer settings in Civil 3D. Both functions kind of the same way. They allow you to take both of those interfaces and export them to Excel. They give you a nice Excel export with smart drop downs and other types of functionality. We've added some nice features to Layer Boss recently, so I'll be sure to highlight those. And then the object layers, like I said, you find those in your drawing settings. That is yet another kind of slow, clumsy interface. Not necessarily something you're editing every day, but if you're creating a new template for perhaps a new department, or maybe just overhauling your standards a bit, it certainly is another one of those slow places to manage those settings. And the last module or tool set in CIM Manager Suite is the Survey Template Manager. And this works like Layer Boss through Excel syncing, but what we're talking about here is the description key set and the figure prefix database. So these are large tables that are really kind of the man behind the curtain on a survey template setup. You'll notice one of the screenshots here, this is the Excel export here. And again, what we're doing is giving you smart exports, meaning we get the layer drop downs so you can choose that stuff. It's not just a dumb kind of text export to Excel, but you get to work in it like it's the description key itself, but without all of the shortcomings of working in the description key set. So With that, we are going to jump into the software, and I'm going to walk you through some of these tools, all of them actually. First one right up here is Linetype Manager. Notice it's kind of a lighter colored icon. This is actually a free tool, so if you download and install the CIM Manager Suite, you will get the Linetype Manager free indefinitely. The other ones are paid tools, but come with a trial period, of course. So Linetype Manager, those of you who have been using it, we have actually made a few enhancements here as well, and I'll touch on those in a bit. So first off, though, you open up a Lin file, and it just defaulted to the last one I had open here. And what it does is it reads the Lin file and it parses it into an interface that's much easier to work with. So instead of working with your Lin file in Notepad like this, where you're basically just doing text editing and you don't really understand what the line type looks like as you're creating it or editing it, you got to go back into AutoCAD and import that line type and then see if it looks right, and then you go, oh crap, no I don't, no it doesn't, right? And you kind of do that 5, 6, 7 times over and over to figure out how to make those line types look correct. So this, we're not creating any kind of proprietary line types. Again, it just writes to the Lin file. We're just providing a better interface. And so as you'll notice, as I click on these different line types, I get a preview down here. So right off the bat, right in the list, it actually shows me what this thing looks like. And this is running a standard AutoCAD print function to generate this preview. So it does provide what you will see. A future enhancement we've got, you notice there's a scale option here. We're going to have a font or a text style option as well. We know that a lot of you use different types of fonts, of course. I would love to see everyone on the same font, but that's not the case, right? So we're going to add a font option down here so you can see those text-based line types show up exactly as you would want for your your font. So what we can do is we can take any of these line types and we can jump into an editing interface. So if I launch that, instead of, again, working through the text style, I can just edit this gas line in this way. So perhaps we want to look at it at a 50 scale, and I can start to control things like maybe the spacing around there. And as I hit that, you'll notice that the preview changes right away. So I didn't quite like how that was plotting, so I wanted to mess around with the spacing around it, okay? Now again, the visual allows you to do this in a matter of seconds instead of minutes where you're importing back and forth from the Lin file. So it's really easy to edit those in that way. Anytime I hit save up here, it just writes to the Lin file at update. And some of these line types are different, so a different scale is more appropriate. In this list here, you perhaps have a lot of different line types. We can do filtering in here. So as I type a word up here, it'll filter that down to just those relevant words. And we can actually sort this in different ways. The actual is the sort order found in the line type file itself, or if I go by display, I can then sort by the header names themselves. So lots of different ways to peer into that Lin file. Let's go ahead and create a new line type and see what that looks like. If I click the Add button, perhaps I'm making a steam line line type, and it's kind of unique. I might want to use a shape file in it. And so creating a new one, right off the bat, you see I get these different components, much like the one I just edited. So instead of that kind of confusing syntax in the Lin file, we have these little components with the properties associated with them. Now, line and space components are pretty straightforward. But what I want to do is use a shape component in here. So I've got a line and a space. Now I can come over here and click Shape. And it provides me all the shape files that are found in the Options Support File search path. And then within those SHX files, I can find the shapes themselves. So I'm going to use this bat shape, and maybe I want to bring the size down a little bit. I'm going to rotate this by 90 degrees. So you can see as I work through this, it's just a lot easier than that text file interface. It's a lot less error prone too, because I just have these simple interfaces to type in. So I'm going to work through this a little bit. Let's say I want kind of an infinity type symbol, so I want two shapes, kind of an 8 symbol. So I want another one of these shapes on the other side. So I've got a duplicate there, I've got delete, or I can just click a new one right off the bat, grab another one of those bat shapes. And it looks like I'm going to need a space in here, so let's put a space after this. And then we'll put another shape, and this one will make it the bat, right? Go down to that 0.1 size. For a rotation, we'll do a -90. Give it a Y offset, bring that a little bit closer. Give it a little X offset. Okay, now I'm getting that symbol I'm after. Now it's a matter of just playing with these spaces a bit. Maybe this needs to be a bit bigger. And after this final shape, I need another space as well. Okay. You don't need to be an expert at making line types, because it's simple visual trial and error in this way. I've worked with a lot of firms over the years, and I so often see line types that are just kind of crummy looking. The symbol in the middle here is not centered, it's just shifted off a little bit, or even just the spacing on one side of the shape is different than the other one, right? And we take a lot of pride in our sheets and our plan sets and how they look, and line types are a part of that. So, and oftentimes it's, well, Jerry left and no one else knows how to do line types. It's not really a problem anymore, because you can open those up in here, and the interface is pretty intuitive. Most anyone can make line types. So there's that CIM line type. I save that. Okay. If we take a look at the text file, the lin file itself, I'll reload that, and it just shows up right down here. There's that new CIM line type. Okay. So you're not really ever working in this interface. I'm just showing you the lin file so you can understand what's happening. A couple other options here. We can do a select. This is to select from a drawing you might have open. So here's two line type definitions that exist in the drawing, but they weren't in my lin file. So I want to get all those into that single lin file, that central place. And so it gives me an option here to add these. And as I do that, they're going to show up down here, my fiber, my fuel line. Of course, if I save that, what does it do? It writes it to the lin file. They show up down here. You can take, say, for example, that new CIM line type we just created. I can run an insert command, and this is going to insert it into the current drawing. So insert that CIM line type, hit OK. I can close out of this, and if I just simply draw a polyline here, we'll be able to see that new CIM line type. Okay, so line type manager takes line type editing creation, makes it that much easier to work with them. Let's move on. Let's take a look at Template Tracker. What Template Tracker is about, and this is probably one of the most popular tools in the CIM Manager Suite, it's about understanding where layers and text styles and all these things are being used across your templates or drawings. So if we look at a couple of Civil 3D object styles, for example, there's a lot of layers in here. And if we look at some label styles, for example, there's text styles being referenced in here. So now multiply that by what, like 2,000, right? How many styles do you have in a Civil 3D template? How many places are you referencing annotation styles like text or dimension styles? Layers and textiles are the big ones, but even dimension and multi-leader styles, they're being referenced in a lot of different places. And you often, if you're trying to get rid of some layers, what are you doing? You're trying to understand where they're being used. You can't delete them. You don't know where they're being used. It's the same with your textiles up here. If I'm in my textile manager, I don't know where SHR or any of these other ones are being used. It won't let me delete them. So what do you end up with? You end up with these templates that just have this extra crap in them, and end users who are just kind of confused by it. So much of CIM Manager Suite is about allowing you to create better, cleaner, more efficient templates in less time. So Template Tracker, we can take and open this, and it's really a simple interface. It takes really there's no learning curve to it. You simply choose your object type. So these are the objects or the settings that can be referenced across my template and drawing. So if I go to Layers, and I look at some of those table layers, see, in a table, it tells me the styles they're being referenced in. I can filter this right up here, find the topo layers, see topo feed. It tells me I've got entities in the drawing that are referencing this. I've got an object layer setting that's referencing this, and then some styles as well. And what might I want to do with these? I might want to manage some of the style, the layers right within that style. So I can do that right within Template Tracker. I can change those layers right in the layer settings within that style. Or perhaps I want to grab all those styles at once and say, look, I don't need this layer anymore. I'm trying to simplify this. I'm changing the layer or whatever it is. And we can swap that layer out all at once. And if we do that, of course, then there's no references to this layer, and of course I can delete it now. I don't know about you, but that kind of stuff, that you can waste hours and hours searching around for layers and textiles and that sort of thing. Let's take a look at textiles. We were looking at that, I believe that SHR textile. So it turns out that's referenced in some entities, in some block definitions. Now what does it take to change that out? I mean, you're going into your block editor, right? You're finding that that block itself. You're going in here. You're changing this, right? Now you don't do this every day, but when you need to do it, you want it to take 10 minutes, not an hour, right? So I can grab these block references, for example. I could select all of them at once and swap that out. Perhaps we wanted to swap it for something else. Or the standard text style. And when I do that, now SHR has no references. I can actually delete that out of there. And if I click out here and I refresh my drawing, you'll see some of these circles, some of these manholes and structures. The text reference will update in them. Take the annotation textile. That thing is referenced across default dimension styles, entities, Civil 3D styles. I can swap all that out at once. Hundreds of references across my template or my drawing. Pick those, swap the text style for, let's say, standard in this case. And when I do this, you'll see some of these objects out here change as well. Switch to that standard text style. Now annotative can actually be deleted out of my drawing. Pretty easy to work with. We've got dimension and multi-leader styles in here as well. You tend not to have as many references in here, but nevertheless they're still there. So standard, could grab those. You can see the value of the dimension itself. Appears to be these two here. That can be swapped out. Okay, so there may be even cases for this where you use it and maybe cleaning up or converting some project drawings to the proper standard. I'm sure you guys don't have any users who don't follow your standards, right? maybe before you're delivering something, you might find some use for Template Tracker to make sure that drawing is cleaned up in the proper way before you deliver it. So that is Template Tracker. As you've noticed, I've been clicking outside of it. It's a modeless window. I can have my Layer Manager open. I can be working in here while I'm working in Template Tracker. I can work on the Settings tab. Okay, really powerful tool. That's Template Tracker. All right, moving on. Layer Boss. This deals with two things. One, the Layer Manager. As we mentioned, we can take this entire interface and we can export it to Excel. That's not that hard. The beauty of it is I can sync any changes I make in Excel back to the Layer Manager itself. Then it also deals with Civil 3D drawing setting, object layer settings. This as well is a pretty clumsy interface. So let me show you how this works. We want to bring it to Excel because some editing is rather clumsy in here. Mass changes, mass deletion of layers, maybe overhauling some colors. Excel, we can do find replacing, things like that. So a few examples. So let's start with the Layer Manager. We'll come up here and click on Export DWG Layers. And as I mentioned, this is one we've made some enhancements to. So I'm working on a beta version of the 20.0.2 version. This should be out shortly, maybe a few weeks, a month or so. And we've got some requests for some additional options in it. And one of those things we've done, they show up here. So backing up, what we can do, we can export from the current drawing. We can grab layers from X references, or we can even add additional drawings. Perhaps you're combining a template or two, or maybe you've got some project drawings you're building a new template from. You want to pull layers from all those at once to start creating your new template. I can limit the layers I export by layer filters. I can even type in a text filter. So as I type rail, you can see layers to export, trims down there. And then some of these new features, we can include line types from lin files. So these are lin files that are found in our options support file search path. So I might only have 3 or 4 line types loaded into my drawing. But if I'm going to be overhauling my layers, I want access to those other line types. So Layer Boss will now export the line types into our Excel spreadsheet, just a text reference to them. And then when you sync back from Excel, it'll automatically load those line types from the lin files and assign them to the layers. We've added another feature here where you can have the background color be displayed in the color column within Excel. So when it's a red color, cell color is red. A nice visual there. And then if you're working with STB files, you can include the plot styles in the current STB itself. So if you're trying to assign different plot styles to your layers, we'd certainly want access to those, even though those plot styles may not be currently loaded into the current drawing or template. So we're going to turn on all those new options. We're going to export this to Excel. Prompts me if I want to open it. I'll say yes right away. And then we get this export that shows up. Now if you had XREFs or additional drawings, you'd have extra tabs show up down here. But they would all behave in the same way as the first and the current drawings tab. So now anything you can do in Excel, obviously, you can do in here. Right? Drag and dropping, this kind of stuff is pretty easy. We talked about line types being loaded. Perhaps some of my storm lines, my storm pipe, right? I didn't have that line type in the drawing, but I can now grab that because this has been exported to Excel. And all we're doing is exporting the text to a drop down in here. And then when, like I said, when we sync it back to Civil 3D, it'll read that lin file and pull in the actual line type definition. Same thing with the plot styles. Maybe some of these storm Storm layers need a different, maybe a thick plot style. I can run copy and paste in here. All these kinds of features that you don't quite get in that normal interface. What about the description column? So just populating the description itself. It's a lot easier to type this stuff in because you can just click through it like that. Maybe there's some fine replacing you want to do. Out-of-the-box templates, everything's rowed, right? Or maybe you're kind of changing your own layer scheme at your company and you want to make some of these changes. You can do it in here because you just run find replace on the text. "42 replacements at once." How long would that take you otherwise, right? Really slow, or really slow, rather clumsy. Okay. So deleting some layers. I don't have any need for rail layers in this template. I'm going to delete those out of here. Maybe there's a new layer. CIM site, for example. That should be white. And we actually took, you'll notice a lot of these are the ACI, the Autodesk colors. And that's an AutoCAD specific thing. So we actually are running a conversion between the ACI colors and the RGB colors to get the appropriate color to show up when we export to Excel. Now there's nothing magical here. They're just numbers or words, the word white, word cyan, so on and so forth. But we wanted to give you guys more of a visual when you're exporting to Excel. So let's go ahead and save this. We've got all kinds of things. Changes to layers. We've got new layers. We've deleted some layers. Some of you are probably wondering, well, how do we delete those layers if they're used in styles? Right? It just gets so messy. So let's come to here and run the create sync drawing layers command. And the first screen is fairly straightforward. I'm just pathing to that Excel file. And then what I want to do, I want to sync to the current drawing. I could also browse to another one. Then I can sync to drawing layers or I can add to drawing layers. Sync is to account for deletions, right? If I add, I wouldn't delete anything. So all those rail layers I deleted, if I just clicked add, it wouldn't try to delete those. But to sync is to say, take the exact definition found in Excel and sync that to my drawing so that it looks exactly like that. You'll notice a button down here, open sample file. Perhaps you just want kind of a blank slate. And you're going to start typing out your layers. Brand new, overhaul, new standards, whatever it is. You can export this and it'll give you that clean export that's all formatted to work with LayerBoss. So back in Civil 3D, I click Next. And what LayerBoss does, it doesn't just automatically go and change all that stuff. It lets me confirm and understand what's about to happen to my drawing. Because that's a lot of stuff going on, and I don't, we don't necessarily trust your tools yet, Brian. So let me see what's happening. Well, so that's what we're doing. We're telling you, we're highlighting in green. These are the updated layers. There's 73 of them. We've got all these descriptions that have changed. We've got line types and colors that have changed. Above that, we've got that new layer, CIM site. We've got 112 layers. Those are unchanged. And then I've got a number of other layers. Notice I deleted some layers, but they're not showing up here. They're instead showing up in cannot delete. Here's all those rail layers. And why can't I delete them? A lot of you can probably guess. They're being referenced somewhere. So we catch that with LayerBoss. And what I can do, it defaults to ignore because you might be realizing, oh, no, those are in use. Let's leave those alone. Or you can make a decision and say, well, no, swap the use of that out for a different layer. Or what's very likely is you don't recall where that layer is even being used. So right here we put a little button, and what it will do is it'll launch Template Tracker, we just talked about in the previous tool set. It'll launch it right within Layer Boss, and it'll provide a filter for that exact one. And now it tells me, oh, that's being referenced in a can't view style. Look, I don't care about that. Let's set that to 0, for example. If I close out of this now, what would you expect that layer to do? It now jumps up to the deleted layers category. That one will now be deleted. So now perhaps I know, actually all of those can be swapped to 0. I can just uncheck ignore for all of these, and it'll swap those out for 0. Okay. One of the new features we added here was deleted layers referenced in description keys. So what's that all about? Okay. You can actually delete a layer that's referenced in a description key, but you won't even know that it's happening. So in Layer Boss, we wanted to add a feature so that you understand it's not necessarily in a style, but it's being referenced in in the description key set. So if I come back here, and I think I've got, let's take this one, vNode Sewer. I'll delete this. I think I've got just that out-of-the-box description key set loaded in my current drawing. So I save this, and this is another feature I want to point out. I've got Excel open, and I have this open. I simply click the reload button, and it reloads or rereads from Excel. Okay, and it looks like I could delete that vNode Storm Server 1, but anyway, if it shows up, if it's in a description key set, that'll show up down here, and you can still delete it, but you'll have these same options you do that you have here in the cannot delete, and then you can make decisions about what to do with that. So we said we were going to ignore that. Some of those default settings we had specified were lost. Like I said, this is a beta, and there's a couple other tweaks we're going to do to it before we release it. That is one of them, so it saves your settings. So now I hit OK to this. There's Ciano Site, that's a new layer we made. My C-Rail layers are all gone. Some of those line types we had set, center, all those layer descriptions, those are updated, right? So CIM Manager Suite works for both things. It might be a new layer for a new department, maybe an overhaul, or excuse me, a new template for a new department, or it's just managing this stuff. Sometimes it's as simple a thing as like overhauling your layer descriptions. In fact, one of our tools in CIM Project Suite, Data Wizard, among other properties that objects might have associated with them, a layer description is a handy field that we use to populate legends or QTO exports. And so this data becomes more important in that tool, for example. But editing this stuff can be really clumsy, and so that's what we're trying to speed up for you guys. So the other piece of Layer Boss, again, it's dealing with layers, but it is your object layer settings. We've taken a look at this. It's this table right here. This one's even worse to work in than the Layer Manager because there's no shift selecting. You can't edit anything. You can't mass edit multiple entries. If I want to create something new, I come in here. I can do the assign or create a new one. And it's all fairly clumsy because it's all one at a time. So I can take this, and I'll run through this a little bit quicker because it's much like what you had just seen, but it's for object layers. I can export the current drawing. Let's go to this one here, the Layer Boss drawing. Export the object layers. Prompts me to open it. I'll say yes. And there's my object layers in Excel. Nicely formatted. Again, the gray fields are ones that are hard-coded or needed. They need to stay the same. But we've actually put some functionality. So what if you accidentally put an extra character in the A column or in the object type column? What if you accidentally put an invalid character on your layer? Excel's going to let you do that. But Layer Boss will catch that. So now I can start to do things like this. I can just type the layer I want it to be. It may not even be created yet. Layer Boss will create it for me automatically. Oops. There we go. And now I can do things like copy and paste. I can drag and drop this stuff because it's Excel. Maybe a lot of my layers, I want to assign C anno to a lot of them. I don't need all these unique annotation or table layers. Right? So it's very easy to copy and paste this stuff around. And it'll generate, like I said, it'll generate new layers for us automatically. Maybe for my interference, I want it to be interference. How about that? So I can save this, come back to Civil 3D. I run the create edit object layers command, and it's just like the other function. I browse to that Excel sheet. Then I've got an option here to create new layers. A little tooltip there. It tells me this will create new layers found in the Excel file, but not found in the current selected drawing. Sounds good to me. Hit next. Similar kind of report or preview of what's about to happen to my drawing. And color coded once again. So the blue, it tells me down here, it's an updated or new layer that doesn't exist. The green, these are all the changes we made. And then it highlights in red some errors, and it actually won't even let you go forward. If I hit OK, it tells me, look, the object type column contains invalid entries. The layer column contains invalid characters. So because it's Excel, we know it's easy to, you can just type anything. The Layer Boss will catch that stuff for you. So I can simply come back here, refresh that, reload. Now those red errors are gone. I hit OK, and it updated my object layers. Okay, all the wildcards and suffixes assigned, all that kind of stuff. Another handy little thing is oftentimes you want to have a layer prefix or suffix referenced in your layer column here. But I don't want that exact layer to exist. So it might be like I want it to say C dash right in here. Well, to do that in here, you have to create the layer called C dash and then reference it in here and then go delete it. It's just this clumsy thing. You might be taking advantage of the suffix or the prefix to spell out that final layer. But with Layer Boss, you can just type in whatever text you want there, so long as they're valid characters, and it'll populate this field without generating this layer if you just leave that Create Layers checkbox off when you sync it back. So that's Layer Boss. Now what else can we do in Civil 3D through Excel syncing? Well, there's other interfaces, and that's what this next tool is about. Other interfaces that are basically big tables. So in a survey world, we've got a couple major tables that are at the core of our survey standards. And if I go to a drawing with a description key set in it, this is the first and the biggest table in Civil 3D that contains all of our standards. So it's our survey code list on the left here. It's the styles, the label styles, the layers, all these settings on what to do with this. And there's a lot of clumsy things in here, right? You create a new key set and then it shoots this thing down here, or a new key, and I'm typing in there, especially if I have it on auto hide. It's very annoying. And then I do this and it shoots to the bottom or the top or some other place, right? And building these out or modifying them, it just ends up being this really clumsy kind of thing. And so we want to provide a way to take all the good from description key sets, but then add all that extra functionality that you would get from Excel. So let's go ahead and walk through this. I'm going to export my description keys. There's that CTC one. I'll save this out. Prompts me to open it. I'll say yes. And surprise, surprise, we get a description key set in Excel. Again, it's a smart export. What do I get in my point style column? I get a list of all the point styles in my drawing. So I can choose and select from those in here. So this kind of editing becomes really quick and easy. Just drag and drop. Maybe there's some keys to delete in here. Maybe I want to create a new one. And I can do this pretty quickly. A building face code, for example. Maybe it gets the same layer. I just want a unique code there. What about creating new codes that that aren't in there already? So maybe I've got a couple tree codes down here, and there's deciduous and tree line and coniferous, and maybe I just want like a generic tree code. So I can come out here. Maybe the code is just going to be TR, and the point style, maybe it should be something different. So I've got two different point styles and corresponding blocks for my coniferous and deciduous, but maybe this should be a new point style. And so what I can do is just type in what I want that to be named, and Excel is going to tell me this doesn't meet your data validation. So on export, we're programming in data validation, meaning these drop downs are supposed to be the expected values. Well, it's going to tell me if I'm violating that drop down list and it doesn't show up there, but I can say yes, go ahead and do that. And then I can come in here and I can say, yeah, use, got a bunch of tree blocks in there. Grab one of these, and when I import that, it's going to make a new point style for me automatically with that name and that block referenced in it. The rest of the settings in the point style will just come from the default. But it's a way, if you're, say, building out your new code list, maybe some of you guys are going from numeric to alpha and you're overhauling your code list, or maybe you've got 4 different code lists across your company and you're coming together and standardizing on one. You can, first thing you're going to do is build out that code list. Well, do it in this spreadsheet, and then think about your point styles you have to create, and then just type out the point styles that you want generated. And if the export you took already had all your blocks you're used to using, your legacy blocks, those will show up in this export. So creation of a new template, a new survey template can be reduced by 75–80% using Layer Boss, of course, but then also Survey Template Manager. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's see how some of those settings come back into Civil 3D. We made a new layer, a new code. We deleted some. We changed some point styles. Come back here to create, edit description keys. I'm going to browse out to that CTC Excel file. And then here's the description key set options. I can create a new one. So the example I just gave, if you're creating a whole new code list and you want to create that description key set for the first time, or in our case, we're just syncing to the CTC one. Then we have similar options again. Do I want to sync the description key set, or do I want to add to it? Again, sync would be to account for deletions you made in Excel. Add would be to only add new ones, or make changes to ones that were already in place. And then I've got here, create new point and label styles. So we created that new tree point style. I could have typed in a name for a new label style, and it would automatically generate that for me. If I hit next, you see that report again. It tells me what I'm getting So up here under new codes, I've got building face, I've got the generic tree code. It's coding or telling me this is a point style that doesn't exist. It's a block name it's referencing. I'm good with that. That's what I want it to do, right? There's some changed codes here, CB, cleanout, unchanged, deleted codes, the boring code. If you happen to have accidentally copied a code, same thing as in Layer Boss with layers. If you had duplicates in there, obviously that doesn't work in Civil 3D. Layer Boss and Survey Template Manager will catch that and tell you if there's a duplicate. So I hit OK to this. Gives me a little confirmation of what I'm about to do. And just so we understand, let's open up that description key set. There's that building face code. And what about that tree code? There's that new tree point style. And within it, I don't know what that block looks like, but there's that block we selected. And that's referenced in the point style as well. We've got some additional tools for CIM Manager Suite coming in the future that allows you to mass edit styles, object styles and label styles, changing default settings, names or descriptions, or created by fields in the styles, all that kind of stuff that ends up being a real tedious one-by-one type edit. We've got functionality coming for that kind of stuff. So the last one here, I'll just take a moment to show it. It works much like the description key set exporter and syncer. And what we're working with is our figure prefix database. Those of you may not be familiar with it. This is when you're using automatic line work in the survey databases. That automatic line work, the coding associated with it, that comes through here, and the figure prefix tells it what layer to land on, what style, is this thing a break line or not, that kind of information. And this, if you thought the description key set was bad, this thing's even worse. It's really glitchy because it's actually not a DWG-based file. It writes to an external file. And as you change this stuff, it's really slow. It jumps around. It's just a really tough interface. But you need this file. You need this in place. So again, instead of working in here, we just simply export our figure prefix database to Excel. We open it up. And now I'm in my happy place again with Excel. And now I can work with these codes any way I want. So maybe we're assigning a new style down here, getting rid of a code or two, changing some of these. Maybe I've got a unique figure style I want to assign. That ABC code, that wasn't supposed to be that. That was supposed to be something else. Gravel code, we'll say yes, that's a break line. And then even if I don't have the layers yet, actually I do have that one, gravel. So I've got edge of gravel up there. I'm making a gravel layer, or code rather. I can assign those layers in here or create new ones. Give that a unique layer name so we see that show up. And then same with the styles as well. If I wanted to generate a new style, I simply type in what I want. It does warn me that, look, that is not in your drop-down list. But that'll be okay. So I save this, come back to Excel, and just as you imagine, it's all pretty intuitive. Sync that Excel file to the CTC demo description key set. I'm going to browse out and grab the CTC demo Excel file. We're going to sync the figure prefix database so that we account for any deletions. We're going to create new survey figure styles and hit next. Here's those new codes, the 2 gravel codes. It's generating those new styles for us, gravel style, some changed codes, deleted codes. Okay. If I hit OK to this, take a look at that CTC demo figure prefix database, and I will see there's those new gravel codes. There's that new style showing up itself. We'll actually see that on the settings tab. So the figure prefix, like I said, it is external to the DWG itself. But if you're automating the creation of layers or styles, it'll do that into the current drawing. So you'd want your survey template open while you were doing any of that. So that would be automated. So there's that gravel style, and then any new layers would be made in here as well. So that is the Survey Template Manager, and overall that is the CIM Manager Suite. So in summary, what is the CIM Manager Suite about? It's about creating better content, better templates in less time. A lot of it, as you saw, is about working in Excel. So much of these standards of ours are edited through large, complex table type interfaces. There is no better, more universal place to do that except in Excel. So why not go ahead and do that? We debated about creating just some different interface in Civil 3D, but Excel is, everyone understands how to use that, and we don't have to recreate the wheel on it. So, tools like Template Tracker, it really helps you more clearly understand your templates and your content, where things are being referenced. You can't keep track of that stuff all the time. You got hundreds of layers, you got thousands of styles. There's no way you're memorizing all that and like, oh yeah, I've got this here and that all makes sense. I can remember that 6 months down the road when I come back here. It's not happening. So you need ways to be able to navigate through all your standards much more easily. And with all of this, what's the point of this, right? If we make better content, it makes for more productive staff. If I'm an end user and I have 15 textiles to choose from, because Mr. or Mrs. CAD Manager doesn't know how to delete 8 of those textiles, right? I'm confused. I'm going to use the wrong standard, right? So it's about having cleaner and better standards and templates. So that's everything I wanted to show you guys with the CIM Manager Suite. Thanks for watching. And just a couple other things for you. How do you get it? Some of you guys already have the CIM Manager Suite. Go to ctcsoftware.com. Go to our products and go to the CIM Manager Suite. It's pretty easy to get your hands on it. You can download a trial right here. That Linetype Manager tool is free in there indefinitely, and then the other ones come with a 14-day trial. There's descriptions of all the tools with simple little introduction videos on here so you understand what they are. Okay. We've got deep dive videos on lots of different use cases for some of the bigger tool sets in there, Survey Template Manager, Layer Boss. I've got a webcast coming up on creating a brand new survey template with Survey Template Manager and other tools in the CIM Manager Suite. So really taking some of these use cases and showing you guys the workflow through this suite of tools. Thanks again, everyone. You have a good afternoon. Take care.